Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today, guys, we're going to be talking XRP. There's some interesting things that have occurred. Obviously, this is a little bit of a later video and this news actually came out approximately 24 hours ago, a little bit shorter than that. So obviously we are talking about the Hinman documents. We are going to be talking about a few other things that this might actually mean, and we'll also reference the charts for XRP's price action to see whether or not these things are actually coming together quite nicely, or maybe we should be a little bit more concerned over the outlook of XRP. So as I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you'll never miss another video here at Cheeky Crypto. Now, if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, the link is in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. And if you are looking for a little bit more from the crypto space, check out the Patreon services in the description down below. We actually offer a lot more for Patreon members via the Discord server, everything from AMAs twice weekly. In fact, we've got one with our Patreon members this evening. And of course, you know, trading, project reviews, what Chris and myself are doing in terms of buying, selling, and staking, and a whole host of additional benefits. So check them out if they are of interest to you. Okay, let's get right down into this then, right? So let's actually start things off by taking a look at this, right? So this is what Chris sent me at the early hours this morning. Basically, just in, Hinman documents have officially been turned over to Ripple following a court order in the case against the SEC. It's not against the SEC, it's more that the SEC are against Ripple, but maybe that's just terminology in my mind. But nonetheless, this is an important milestone, right? This shouldn't be unusual, though. This is something that we've known has been coming for quite some time. You know, they put in all these court orders and they really wanted to get their hands on these documents. The judge agreed, and it's just taken the SEC dragging their heels to be able to get these documents handed over, which of course it's fine that finally actually happened. They finally handed them to Ripple. So as you can see, well worth the fight. Ripple Council confirms that the Hinman documents are now in their hands. So these things are really bullish, right? These are kind of really good pieces of news that essentially mean that, the price action of XRP should be positive, right? And we're going to go into that in a second. Obviously, there's going to be the uneducated kind of retail investor who's just going to FOMO right in, and then of course there's the traders and the kind of the analysts who are going to be looking at the price action, looking at this and understanding that these things are great that they're finally happening, but it isn't going to be an overnight sensation. It's not like the price is going to go straight to the moon, within 24 hours of these documents being handed to Ripple, but it does obviously compound some other issues within the case that we should probably start thinking about in a little bit more detail, and also what that might mean in terms of timelines and what that might mean for the price action of XRP. Okay. So I'm just going to read a couple of quotes from this this article here. So basically, it's always felt good about our legal arguments, and I feel even better now. I always felt bad about the SEC's tactics, and I feel even worse about them now. So that's interesting. And then, of course, over here, over 18 months and 6 court orders later, we finally have the Hinman docs, internal SEC emails, and drafts of his infamous 2018 speech. While they remain confidential for now, at the SEC's insistence, I can say that it was well worth the fight to get them. So very interesting. You can read into that as you will. The SEC wants to think that it cares about disclosure, transparency, and clarity. Don't believe them. When the truth eventually comes out, the shamefulness of their behavior will shock you. Will shock you. And I think essentially that's one of the things that has been very apparent from this lawsuit the entire time, was that they did not have the best interests of the retail investor in mind. Essentially, doing this lawsuit and dropping this lawsuit on Ripple caused billions of dollars of damage to said retail investors that their mission statement is there to protect. We know all of this. So it isn't really unusual that we see that potentially we're going to see in the future, that just how corrupt these types of organizations are. Okay, now here in the UK, it generally doesn't matter too much. We know that XRP is an exchange token. It is, it's not currency. It's not a security. It's just simple means of exchange between one currency to another. And that's kind of how most countries around the European regions kind of look at it. And of course, you've got the Asian regions as well, and they're okay with Ripple and XRP, and they kind of know what that is. But, you know, the US are the ones that seem to get really stuck on this. I've always thought it was either to drag their heels to prevent Ripple from expanding too far, too fast, or it was a money grab to sorts, right? And we obviously take a look at JP Chase and the things that they're doing with their cross-border payment solutions, you know, very much competition to Ripple. Maybe they pulled some strings to kind of, you know, get this lawsuit put. Who knows? Essentially, a lot of that is kind of conspiracy, it's speculation, and, you know, there's no actual hard facts to say that's what happened. But, you know, when you put 2 and 2 together, it's not hard to come up with 4, essentially, right? But, you know, nonetheless, these things, I think, in time will become very apparent. Now, with all this being said, and these Hinman documents finally in their hands, and these quotes that are very, very powerful quotes to understanding that actually maybe there's something really like a smoking gun in those documents and those emails, that maybe that leads us on to the next one that came out not too long ago, actually just before those Hinman documents were handed over. Now, here's the timeline and question for all of you guys. Let me know in the comments below. Essentially, this comes down to understanding whether or not this meeting behind closed doors happened specifically because they handed those documents over, or they knew that they were going to hand them over, so they had to strategize behind closed doors about what the fallout of those documents are going to be. Is settlement on the way? Now, if you think back to what Chris and myself were talking about in 2020, all the way through 2021, and right up to now, we've always believed that this case will end up in settlement. And this is as simple as understanding that the SEC lawsuit itself is rather weak, and the SEC have made so many blunders on their journey of this lawsuit that actually it seems almost laughable for them to win. But obviously they cannot lose either, because if they were to lose, that would be detrimental to their position in the crypto space going forward, right? So therefore, the only logical conclusion is they reach settlement, and because they can't lose, they're not likely to win. The only thing they can do is basically settle. So with this closed meeting, it's probably to strategize over those documents. At least in my mind, that's what it was about. At least a part of the meeting would have been around that. And obviously, you know, XRP to the moon is kind of, you know, the clickbaity kind of thing, right? And I might do that in the thumbnail. I haven't decided what the thumbnail will look like. Maybe it's going to have XRP goes to the moon or something. I don't know. But essentially, you kind of get the idea. Everyone's going to be thinking now that because the Hinman documents are in hand, this particular meeting, you can join these dots together. Settlement is on the horizon. Now, let's put that into time frames and kind of think about what that might look like. I don't think it will happen anytime soon. We've got probably a little while before we actually do see the agreements or settlement and things like that. But we are definitely, in my mind, heading in that direction. And I do think that that is a likely outcome of what potentially is going to happen here for Ripple and the SEC. I think they will come to conclusion. Now, a part of that, and that settlement, I think, is going to be required that XRP gets clarity. Okay, and this is something that I talk about quite a bit because essentially the US need to know what XRP is. Is it now a security, or is it only what was actually happening in the past? The lawsuit is specifically about the historic sales of XRP, not the future sales of XRP. So it needs to be classified. It needs to be clarified that future sales of XRP are not deemed as security, or are deemed as security, in order to allow the exchanges to kind of freely list XRP again and actually abide by the laws, right? Not having or not knowing what an asset is basically makes it very, very difficult for these companies and these organizations to continue trading XRP, right? So one of the things that this settlement is going to have to be is clarity over what is a security and what is not a security. And more specifically, relating to this case, is XRP a security going forward or not? And that is the key thing. And I think that's probably why settlement was never reached before. I don't think the SEC want to give that kind of clarity to any cryptocurrency. I mean, they gave it to Bitcoin and Ether, but let's face it, that's because of the people who were greasing the palms of those organizations, both Bitcoin and Ethereum. You know, and essentially, you know, think about who actually invested in the ETH in the early days. Then obviously you can just think about why that was then called not a security, right? So essentially, I think the SEC is kind of a huge corrupt organization, but it doesn't just span to the US. Pretty much most governmental officials kind of have elements of that kind of corruptness within, right? And the SEC and the way that they've handled this lawsuit just comes across absolutely disgusting. But let me know what your thoughts are on that in the comments below. Now, with all this fantastic and bullish news, what does that mean for the price action of XRP? Well, not a lot. if we're being brutally honest. Okay, so at the moment we're tracking some interesting kind of structures. We're looking at this kind of corrective pattern. We've been talking about this for a while on the channel. We have actually just entered into the lower range here, but I still think we've got more room to go down yet, and you can kind of see we're still falling here a little bit. But a big swing to the upside is going to happen within the entirety of crypto, okay, not just XRP. So XRP here will probably rally up a bit, and you know, that'll be fantastic, but it'll be pretty much aligned to the rest of the crypto space that's coming down and correcting quite nicely. These are still, in my mind, short-term corrective structures. Looking at this at the moment, we can still come up higher than 55.9, but it does look like we are just in corrective-based patterns within the structure of XRP. So we aren't seeing any kind of impulsiveness, okay? We have little pockets of it over here, for example, but then we're breaking down too much to actually be a valid trend to the upside under Elliott-Wave theory. So if you're new to the channel, I use Elliott-Wave theory to break down the structure of a cryptocurrency. And, you know, it's quite complicated, but once you understand it, it's actually really, really simple. If you're looking for more information on how to kind of understand Elliott-Wave, then join us in Discord. I've got a PDF that's 181 pages that'll help you understand that. Now, I am working on video course material to also help understand how to use Elliott-Wave theory, how to implement it, and how to understand what we're talking about in a little bit more detail. But basically, all of these three-wave structures, these ABC structures, they are deemed corrective, which means they're against the trend, or they're just continuation-based patterns. It basically means that we're not in a trend. A trend is defined as 5 waves, and it's very impulsive in the way that it works. So you can see that this is very impulsive in the way that it rapidly moves to the upside, but it is not containing 5 waves inside it. It's actually just 3 waves, and therefore we can actually know that reversal is likely. So when we take a look at these things and we look at the price action, we can say, okay, sure, we're correcting down. We've probably got a bit of a swing to the upside, and this usually happens at the end of these 3-wave structures. So for example, over here, we complete with 3 waves coming down, we swing up with 3 waves, and then we move down in 3 waves, meaning we're probably going to swing up either 5 waves up or 3 waves up. Okay, it's one of those 2 options. And if it's impulsive, then we'd talk about this also being maybe a wave 4, and then this being the final 5th wave, which we can talk about that at a later stage as well. And my point here is that despite all that bullish news, we aren't seeing really, really impulsive candles just appear taking us to the moon. Instead, what we're actually looking at is finishing off corrective structures, and then we're just going to do what the crypto space does best and progress slowly to the upside. Now, at the bottom here, we have got our momentum indicator and our basically a stochastic RSI and the multi-frame stochastic RSI. Now, this is an indicator that's available for our Patreon members. This is the Cheeky Crypto SRSI indicator. You cannot search this in TradingView. This is an invite only. You can only get it via the memberships that we have available at Cheeky Crypto, right? And then add this to the chart. You can see we're actually oversold, right, on the 1 month, the 1 day, and the 8-hour chart, but we're overbought on the weekly chart. Right, and we are just coming out of the overbought on this 60-minute chart. Okay, so this actually gives us a bit of a snapshot as to understanding, yes, there's a big swing coming. We aren't quite there yet, but we should be blissfully aware that that 1 weekly chart, right, that weekly time frame being overbought is really bearish. Okay, the monthly has been overbought for oversold for a very long time. It's not a problem. It can stay down there for quite a period. But the weekly, where it is being overbought, tells us that the next time that we're overbought, we should expect a bigger move to the downside, right? So we swing up in 3 waves or 5 waves, doesn't matter which, and then we break down pretty rapidly, I would have thought, because we'll be overbought on some of these really major time frames as well. So in terms of for how long I think things are going to play out, I don't think we're going to see real big positive settlement kind of changes within the price action of XRP anytime soon. But by the end of the year, I would like to think that we'll be heading in some kind of positive direction. That being said, ultimately the macroeconomic situation that we find ourselves in pretty much is going to be what dictates XRP's progression. Now, in an ideal world, we kind of want the SEC to drag their heels longer when it comes to this settlement, if that is what's going to happen, right? Essentially, we don't want anything to kind of be fast-tracked at this point. That would actually be really, really unfortunate for XRP. We really want the case for the Ripple and the SEC to come to conclusion only when things are more bullish than they actually are right now. Okay, so we don't want to be in a bearish situation when that kind of news breaks. We want to be with a lot of demand coming in. And one of the things that we need to understand about bull markets and bear market is essentially our supply and demand, right? So a bull market is defined when the demand is outpacing the supply, right? As in all the supply of a cryptocurrency, in this case XRP, is being soaked up by so much demand. People want it, they can't get their hands on it quick enough, right? And then it's vice versa in a bear market. When the supply outpaces the demand, that's when we see prices just trend down, right, and just drop down. It's because there's surplus supply that the demand just can't soak up. So essentially that's where we are right now. We haven't got the demand to really see this thing fly. So what we want is the lawsuit to kind of come to conclusion only when that demand really starts to come in. That way we can take advantage of the fantastic news in a more positive way. Okay, but guys, I'm going to leave this video right there. If you have found this useful and informative, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all that said, done out of the way, hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.